Babek with the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm joined by some of our project team who will help out with questions and discussion after the presentation. This meeting is a continuation of the community meetings we've had over the past year. All of our past meetings, materials, and documents are published on our webpage, which is linked on the final slide of this presentation. We ask that you hold all questions and comments until the end. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our project webpage along with the slides within a few days. A brief agenda for our time today. Before we get started, we wanted to remind you what a comprehensive plan is. The purpose of a comprehensive plan is to guide coordinated and harmonious development. It is general in nature with its goals, objectives, and maps, and provides long-range recommendations for the general development of land. The development of comprehensive plans is required by the Code of Virginia, and they provide guidance and recommendations and are not law like the zoning ordinance. The policy plan includes goals, objectives, and policies. Goals provide the general direction of the plan. Objectives include statements to help achieve those goals. And finally, policies include specific approaches for pursuing an objective. The policy plan applies countywide. Therefore, it's important to ensure the policies developed are general and flexible enough to apply across the county. The Board of Supervisors authorized the consideration of a comprehensive plan amendment to update the countywide policy plan. We're currently in phase 1 of this effort, and the goals of this update are to align with the strategic plan, One Fairfax, and other recently adopted plans, to update policies and to add new policies. Here's our project timeline. Currently, we're in phase 3 of our community outreach, which began this spring. Our meeting today is intended to continue the outreach conducted last summer and fall, and is informed by the research papers and draft plan text that has been published onto our webpage. Today, we'll be focusing on some of the highlights on each element from the published draft text. On this slide, we have linked all of the draft text that's been released for ease of reference, and we do want to highlight that equity has been incorporated into each element, and there's additional links at the end of the presentation. All right, to get into it. The overall changes to the policy plan include streamlining the elements, modernizing the language used, alignment with county plans, and incorporation of equity throughout the document per the board's direction. In addition to removing outdated information, we also have added new objectives and policies and incorporated the community feedback we've received over the past year through our first and second phases of outreach. We're asking that additional feedback on the draft text be provided to our public input email address by the end of this month to allow staff time to review the feedback and incorporate it into the staff report and final staff recommendations. However, like with other projects, we're of course accepting feedback up until the public hearings, which are anticipated to occur this fall. Now we'll get into the individual elements and highlight some notable changes. The comprehensive plan overview. This was previously called the introduction or preface element, and it serves to provide the foundation of the policy plan and the comprehensive plan. It provides a narrative of Fairfax County's land use planning history and has evolved to now provide a land use vision for the county. The goals have been updated to better align with the strategic plan, and these new goals focus on land use, equity, housing, healthy communities, access to arts, culture, recreation, and lifelong learning, environment, economic opportunity, and urban design and transportation. The updated element also provides substantial context on how the comprehensive plan is used and identifies how it is implemented and monitored, as well as describing opportunities for community engagement. The Healthy Communities element is new to the comprehensive plan and was added per board direction to staff. This element provides countywide guidance pertaining to health considerations that should be incorporated within the siting, design, and construction of developments within the county. The existing policy plan includes a human services element that contains policies related to health, but they're more focused on the services and service delivery models, many of which are outdated and don't meet current best practices. Therefore, the human service element, objectives, and policies related to health have been repositioned into this new Healthy Communities element. The remaining objectives and policies will be addressed with phase 2. There are 5 major policy themes within the Healthy Communities element. First, to promote active living focuses on active transportation, recreation, and play. Grow Food Systems focuses on food production, food processing and waste, and food access. Create Opportunities for Social Connection focuses on placemaking, connectivity, and community pride. Promote climate health focuses on green infrastructure and healthy buildings. And finally, ensure equitable access to healthcare and human services focuses on healthcare and human services. Within the land use element, you'll note that the entire element has been restructured and the appendices have been absorbed into objectives and policies to provide better readability and increase ease of use. Some additional highlights include recommendations from the Clarion Land Use Trend Reports have shaped new policies that give staff the tools and flexibility to adapt. These policies encourage thoughtful integration of ground floor retail into mixed use areas and address evolving office demand by incorporating repurposing guidance for existing structures and sites. They also support expanding repurposed buildings in height and floor area while allowing new residential density beyond the footprint in areas with surface parking. Additional guidance has been strengthened to preserve industrially designated areas in future development plans. Collectively, these updates anticipate emerging trends and enhance flexibility. An addition informed by recent redevelopment trends is a new concept called suburban village centers. This new classification reflects predominantly commercial nodes within our suburban neighborhoods along arterial roadways that provide a range of services to adjacent lower density communities and have the potential for mixed use or mix of uses. Another notable step taken during the review of the land use element was the introduction of a new objective that highlights the importance of creating places with high quality urban design principles. Existing policies that focused on these elements were reorganized and strengthened in their intent. Likewise, this further supports guidance included in the county adopted urban design guidelines. A key goal of this update was to incorporate equity focused policies across the entire policy plan tailored to the context of each individual element, which we've done within the land use element in addition to the rest. Lastly, new development criteria were introduced for consideration of data centers. The newly developed criteria builds upon the staff work conducted as part of the January 2024 Data Center Report and the zoning ordinance amendments adopted in September of 2024. The transportation element has also been fully restructured. While many objective topics have stayed the same, the order and language has been revised. Further, new objectives have been added that relate to active transportation, safety, technology, infrastructure, and community engagement. While the topics are generally addressed and scattered within the existing element, staff is proposing to create new objectives and policies to more directly support them. The active transportation objective is where all of the bike, pedestrian, and micromobility policies are grouped to promote more walkable and bikeable communities. Safety is currently mentioned a lot in the adopted policy plan, so staff determined that that topic warranted its own objective. Community engagement was added to further address the process with capital projects, pedestrian and bike facilities, transit updates, and transportation studies and designs. And finally, technology and infrastructure is where policies supporting improvement of the transportation network are housed, in addition to recognizing that technology could help with innovative ideas, analysis, and site design work. While we've largely retained the structure of the environment element, we've focused our changes on the following areas. We've modified the introduction to explicitly add new concepts and clarify connections. While these topics were generally implied in the element, we've strengthened references to things like greenhouse gas emissions, the changing climate, and equity. We've aligned with CCAP, Resilient Fairfax, One Fairfax, the Tree Action Plan, and other guiding documents as appropriate. CCAP and Resilient Fairfax address the importance of incorporating strategies for greenhouse gas emission reduction and for providing adaptive environments. Some of these strategies, such as green building commitments, tree preservation, and flood protection, can be found in the existing element. The draft updates to the objectives, policies, and associated preambles aim to do a clearer job of linking the importance of these existing, new, and/or improved policies to the goals of greenhouse gas emission reduction and creating a more resilient natural and built environment. We've enhanced policies to support better site design and emphasize the environment within developments. We've also developed countywide stormwater management guidance, and we've created a new objective and associated policies to address equity. Phase one of the Parks and Recreation update focuses on incorporating concepts from the Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Access Strategy, or PROSA, into a new objective and policies. The four main components to PROSA being incorporated in Phase one include improving the 10-minute walk access to parks, enhancing access to complete park experiences, enrich habitat connectivity between environmental corridors, and analyze and prioritize recreation needs and projects with an equity lens. Phase 2 will be informed by the ongoing Park Authority 2026 needs assessment and will include updates to level of service standards, park classifications, including the urban park classifications, urban park policies and guidelines, and resource management policies. Phase 2 will also include developing a revised introduction to the element and streamlining, aligning, and adding new policies based on the Park System Master Plan, the Countywide Strategic Plan, the Urban Parks Framework, the Natural and Cultural Resource Management Plans, and the concepts of equity, service delivery, healthy communities, walkability to parks and trails, and resource protection and management. And with that, we do have our contact information and webpage. To view the existing policy plan, we have a link to that. All of the draft text and our past materials can be found on our project webpage, which is the first link. And please, any comments, please provide to the planforward@ffxeffectiveandefficientgovernment.com email address. That is our central email address for tracking and logging the feedback that we've received so that we make sure that we can incorporate it. And without further ado, to turn it over to the meat of this meeting, we want to open the floor for questions and discussion, and we do have most of our staff team here that are better able to answer specific questions about the particular elements or proposed policies if you've had a chance to review the draft text.
So I guess I just have a quick question, and I should have raised my hand, sorry. But I wanted to know, so I'm in the Mount Vernon district. A lot of our needs, our things are different. How are you accounting for the fact that different parts within Fairfax County are so different?
Good question. So with the policy plan, we do try to be a little bit more general, but we aim to have the tools that we need to apply for different needs throughout different parts of the county. So understanding that Mount Vernon is different than the Sully district, but the policy plan really sets up that framework to help us accomplish that. And then the area plans dive more specifically into those differences and those needs. I don't know if land use has anything else to add or anyone else from the team wants to chime in.
I would just say that, for more specifics for each district, that's where the area plans then come into play. So the policy plan really kind of sets up the broader objectives and policies for the entire county. And then when we need to kind of dig deeper and look for guidance for the individual areas, that's where we delve into the area plans.
And so there's area plans is going to be a part of this then, or that's going to be separate?
No, sorry, I should have clarified. No, that the area plans is not part of this. We're just now looking at the policy plan. Whether or not we don't know if we'll be looking at the area plans in the future or not, but I just wanted to kind of give you that reassurance that we have specific guidance for the different areas of the county. Right now, we are just focusing on the policy plan.
Thank you, Katrina. Do we have any other questions or comments, or does anyone from the staff team want to highlight anything for our participants? It's okay if not, everyone can get back to their lunch break. I know schedules are tight.
Corinne, this is
Can I
Bob.
ask you, sorry, one more question? So how is this going to go? Next stop is going to be then the board of directors and then that'll be the final. Can you just kind of go through that process one more time if you don't mind?
So for our timeline for the project? Okay, so with this, next week we are going to the Board of Supervisors Land Use Policy Committee meeting where we're going to talk about the environment element, the transportation element, and the land use element. After that, we do have one follow-up discussion with the Planning Commission Policy Plan Committee on June 5th. And then over the summer, staff will be hard at work developing a staff report and incorporating all the feedback that we've received into the staff recommendations. And then we're targeting public hearings in the fall. We do not have specific dates identified for those yet, but per the board direction, we are aiming for fall 2025 for Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors public hearing.
Corinne, this is Bob Pecora with FCDOT. I believe Robert Wayfield's trying to, his microphone's off mute, but I think he might be trying to ask something, but I haven't heard, or we haven't been able to hear him yet. Is that correct, Robert?
If you can hear me, yes.
Oh, we can now. We can now. Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't hear discussion about the transportation element changes. I started reading this last night, and somewhere there's about 2 pages of red where you seem to have eliminated everything existing, and basically you have taken out the words to the effect that transportation land use should be balanced. And so I'm sorry, it's Bob Pincora, is it? I mean,
yes, that's me. That's me. Right.
I've heard your name before. So basically, what is the objective in eliminating much of the existing text?
So the transportation plan text has been revamped. We are still incorporating a land use portion of it where the land use and transportation should be balanced. I think it's most of the text that we had from 30 years ago has been changed around in order. So when you look at the draft text, you'll see a lot of red lines, but that's because we changed the order of how the objectives are being presented with the supporting policies. So we worked with our team, or we coordinated with the land use team that land use and transportation should be balanced. So they also have an objective or a policy recommendation in their guidance for land use, that both land use and transportation work together and balance out the needs as far as the land uses themselves, and also what the impacts might be on the transportation network. So it's in there. I
should just send you an email, and if you can help me understand where to find. I admit I only spent about an hour looking at this last night, and as Walter Alcorn is very well aware, I've been asking for a decade in Reston. Yes, please. I've been asking for a decade where there are multiple developments in the same area. The Commonwealth has, I can't remember now, it used to be either Section 870 or Section 527 regarding the impacts of major developments. In the case of Reston, both in the town center area and in the Wheelie Avenue Station area, you have in each case, let's say, a dozen or more developments within a 1 mile radius of the transit stations, and it's the cumulative impact of the proposed projects that need to be assessed. And to date, as Walter is well aware, nobody has responded to say anything. So this is a heads up. I happen to catch this meeting. I don't need an answer today, but by the time you go to the board next week, I want to understand how this cumulative development is being assessed. I also haven't heard anything back from the Commonwealth, and I don't know who's in. Is it Chapter 527 or is it Chapter 870 that prevails, or do both prevail?
So Chapter 527, Chapter 870, those relate to transportation studies at the state level of Virginia Department of Transportation. The county has a newer process we have. It's called the Comprehensive Transportation Analysis. So depending on the level of development, there's three levels, three ways of studying a transportation analysis. And it looks beyond just vehicle analysis, but also includes pedestrian level of comfort, bicycle level of traffic stress. It looks at safety. It looks at transit, in addition to vehicle analysis. What you're asking for is, I believe, like a comprehensive transportation study on the effects of development. So that is not really pertaining to a Chapter 870 or 527. Those two processes from VDOT are related to development of new proposals, and they have to look at a comprehensive transportation analysis. VDOT is more concerned with, I believe, on a vehicle level basis, but the county's looking for a more comprehensive analysis that includes bike
Okay,
and pedestrians.
I don't mind that you do a comprehensive analysis. It's just that in the SSPA processes that I've observed so far in 2025, there is no transportation analysis of any kind. Okay, and I don't know why that is, and there may be a reasonable explanation, but I can only tell you is that 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, 2012, when I was, let's see, what is it even called? Reston Station, when Comstock was doing its initial plans, I read some document that said the peak period trip generation on Sunset Hills Road would be 1,600 vehicles per hour, which is about equivalent to one lane of traffic.
Mhm.
Since that time, at least a dozen new developments have been proposed within the 1 mile radius of Wheelie Avenue Station. And so I guess you could say I don't have specific knowledge, but just judgment and wisdom says that if it was 1,600 vehicles a day from that one project, that 10 projects is going to be at least double, maybe triple that. And I'm open to suggestion of how you're going to review this, but as I say, when I saw all this red line language last night, it raised a flag. So as I say, I'm open, and I'll send you an email, and if you can guide me to where the three different levels that you were referring to in the comprehensive transportation analysis. So for instance, in Wheelie, we've got proposed additional bike lanes on the Wheelie Avenue Bridge,
Mhm.
and yet I've not seen any analysis that takes account of the additional vehicular traffic that will be generated by projects in the next 20 years. And that's what's needed. So
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so yeah, please go ahead and send me an email through the email address that Corinne had on the previous slide, and she'll direct it over to me, and I can provide, there it is at the bottom, plan forward, ffx@publicinput.com. And then Corinne can she'll forward it back to me, and I can answer the questions regarding how we address it in the transportation policy plan, and then the other processes with the comprehensive transportation analysis, which is separate of the plan forward process. And also there was a Wheelie Avenue study that was recently completed, so I can put you in contact with the project manager for that one.
And in the Wheelie Avenue study, was this, oh, wait a minute. There are two studies that I'm thinking of. One is the Soapstone Overpass, and then the second is the Wheelie Avenue.
Yeah, I don't recall if the Soapstone project has started or the study has started on that one. Wheelie Avenue, I think, was completed, so I can put you in contact with those project managers.
And going back to 2018, when they did, let's see, when Tom Bashadney did, I guess this was done for Reston, and I'm trying to think with the grid of streets and so on.
Mm-hmm.
They did, I don't know what like a block analysis. What did they? A grid of streets analysis is what it was called. Right. And at the end of that process, I asked, after phase one of that process, I asked the question, how are you accounting for the additional traffic that will coming on the on the Dulles Toll Road as a result of the tripling of development in Tyson's Corner. So in other words, if 20% of the trip generation from Tyson's ends up at exits in Reston, how are the local grid of streets assimilating the additional traffic from Tyson's? So I know that's not an easy question to answer,
Right.
but it's like we can't just assume that by tripling the size of Tyson's that but we have to. I don't know what the assumptions are regarding modal splits, but we need to. And going back actually more simple maybe to just the Wheelie Avenue study, if it's there, I haven't read it. We need to understand the assumptions regarding modal splits over the next 20 years. Regarding, are you assuming that, for instance, 80% of people will continue to be single person occupant vehicles? Sure. And so we need to see over the coming decades how that's addressed. So, I probably best at some meeting, I'll wait to see what comes from your end and then follow up probably.
Yeah, please go ahead and send me the email. And there's you have a number of questions I can relate to other project managers for those specific projects. And for policy plan, we can look into, like you had said, balancing transportation and land use, but also looking at comprehensive studies to look at the impacts overall of transportation or land use development over time. So,
and obviously any land use plan, let's say, well, I guess it's several years since they updated the comp plan for Reston, but in the last 5 years, quite clearly the demand has shifted. Let's say in the work that was done 10 years ago, there was an attempt to balance residential and office development. The office market has now significantly changed. And so the question then becomes, let's say 10 years ago, actually it's more than 10 years ago now, it was 50-50 residential, commercial. And now, because of the change in the office market, what is the premise being used for the future growth of Reston? And I don't know, it could be that they need to update the Reston comp plan to reflect today's reality.
Right. There was a recent Reston comp plan amendment. I can put you in touch with that project manager as well. So again, just send me the email to the Fairfax Plan Forward Fairfax, and I can direct the questions to the appropriate FCDOT staff, and they can respond back to you. As far as policy plan, I've taken your comment about more comprehensive studies and all that. And because we're applying the plan text for the policies at a broader basis countywide, it's not specific to given areas. The questions you have, I can direct to other staff and we can try to answer all your questions.
And as part of what you're doing in coming up with what you're doing, have you done updated traffic modeling for various parts of the county?
No. For the policy plan, we are just looking at policy updates. And as development comes up, we are applying the comprehensive transportation analysis on an area study, or actually the developers of the properties, they have to provide a transportation analysis review that county staff and VDOT review.
So, for instance, let's say there are about, I can't remember now, about a dozen SSPAs in Reston alone that were submitted prior to February, and somebody needs to say, this is the point in the process where we have to do the transportation analysis. I mean, it doesn't need to be done yet, but it certainly needs, before plan approval occurs.
Yeah, it depends. Right. It depends on the level of development, but it's up to the applicant team, whoever proposed the SSPA. They will have to do the transportation analysis, submit it to FCDOT and to VDOT for review. But there are guidelines that we provide to them on how to conduct a comprehensive transportation analysis. It is not the county to do that. It is the county to review whatever they provide to us. So I believe the SSPAs are still going through review. They'll be added to the county's work program sometime this summer. And then we'll get an idea of which site-specific plan amendments that will be reviewed by the county, and not just DOT, but it's also land use, environment, parks and recreation. It's basically a lot of the teams within the county will be reviewing these plan amendments.
Part of the challenges, and this goes back 5 years to 2018, back in, I think it was July 31st, 2018, the county approved three major developments, two on the south side, oh gosh, I guess it's Wegmans. I don't even remember the names of the projects. On the south side of the toll road near the town center metro station. And then they approved a project at Wheelie on the south side, actually two projects, both on the southeast and the southwest of Wheelie and Sunrise Valley. And so again, those were approved, but I don't have a sense from anything done by the county 5 years ago that we know what additional trip generation is occurring as a result of what was already approved. And that's the problem. That's really the problem. Here we are considering all sorts of new things, and yet we don't know the impact of the previous developments approved.
Right.
Sorry to be lengthy in my comments, but it's better that you understand me, so I'm not coming at you from left field. So
no, thank you, and thank you, Bob and Robert. Robert, if you send us an email to that Plan Forward FFX email,
Okay.
I will make sure it gets to Bob, and we'll coordinate to make sure that we're getting you answers and putting you in touch with the right people for some of your questions outside of the scope.
I'm aware of Bob Kincora. Your name is?
Karine Babek.
Say again?
Karine Babek.
Karine Vivek? Is that?
Babek. It's on the project webpage if you
Okay.
scroll down to contact us.
I'll find it. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, thank
you
for doing this. It's I guess you could say it's disappointing that I didn't know until the last 2 or 3 weeks. I know it's been started in 22, and I know that you, and one final thing, since Bob Kincora probably knows this, is that normally we're due for a 6-year transportation priority plan update, and the present plan expires on June the 30th, 2025. And I've not seen anything about the update to the existing transportation priority plan.
There is one available. I can send you the link to the website.
Okay. Again, there has not been public hearings of a substantive nature.
It may not have been adopted yet, but there's one in draft mode.
So there was a meeting at the Planning Commission a year ago. That's the only meeting that I see. So
right.
It's May 13th.
And I can put you in contact with the project managers for that part of the process as well, the transportation priorities plan.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I do see Bindu has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think what my question was. I think so when you go against it's just a quick question. When you go against something that's on the comprehensive plan, let's say there's a developer that comes in, they're doing something that's against it. How are you still going to make them do? What are you going to make them do? Let me ask you guys that. Let's say the plan has it a certain way, and their project is not working with that. So what's the process from there when they want to go against the plan?
So typically with projects, we go through the development review process, and that's where we have a large team of staff members reviewing for different aspects such as land use, transportation, environment, and in many other categories. And so if something isn't necessarily aligning with the plan, we do work through that process to get as close as we can to doing that, meeting those goals of the comprehensive plan, but ultimately this culminates in a staff report and a staff recommendation to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, where topics like outstanding issues where conformance hasn't necessarily been met are identified, and we work with the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors to reach resolution and to get the project into good shape. Sometimes this results in an approval, sometimes a disapproval or a denial, if you will, of that project based on the issues. But it's really case by case. It's assessed on a case by case basis, and it's worked through through the development review process, really. And I don't know if anyone on the project team wants to chime in with anything that I might have missed, but that's generally where we are.
So nothing different. I mean, that's the way you do it now. So nothing has changed on that.
Correct. We will still continue to work with developments to get them into the best shape possible prior to public hearings. And sometimes when things aren't necessarily in conformance or harmony with the plan, we do have a longer review process to iron those issues out. But nothing's changing with that process. We would still work with developers and elevate to the Planning Commission and board. I see Katrina came unmuted.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that, I mean, we still have the process by which, I don't know, just kind of stepping back from the review process and the rezoning process. So if somebody came forward with the proposal that wasn't in conformance with the comprehensive plan and say they wanted to change, I think maybe were you asking like if they wanted to change the comprehensive plan? So we still have the same processes in place that either they could submit part of we have that biennial SSPA process that folks can submit. Anybody can submit a nomination as part of that process as long as they have the property owner's consent. So that's one way. And then we also have another way, which they're board authorized plan amendments, that site specific plan amendment process. And then the other way that we change the comprehensive plan is through area wide studies. So where that's usually initiated kind of these are all things on the work program, but those are all the ways that we change, we amend our comprehensive plan and we go through that process. That is part of this has not changed.
Thank you. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Katrina. I don't see any more hands raised. Are there any other questions that we can answer while we're here today? I don't see anything in the chat. Seeing and hearing none, I want to thank it. Oh, is that Robert?
No, that's somebody in the
Oh.
back.
Okay, sorry.
I do actually have one more question. Gee, somebody came in and disturbed my train of thought. Let me see. Okay, in terms of the SSPAs that were under consideration, what's the time frame for their going to decision making by whatever level of the planning staff? Is it the next 3 months or more than 3 months?
Well, hi, Katrina Knudsen. I just wanted to say that the SSPA process is not part of what we're necessarily speaking to today. Today, we're talking about the policy plan, which are policies for the entire county. So, but with that said, I just wanted to let you know, so the SSPA process, the nomination process, that will be going to the Planning Commission. Again, the SSPA process initially, the screening phase is just to determine whether something should be added to our work program. And so that would be going to the Planning Commission. They'll be doing their final markup in June, on June 4th, and then it goes to the board for an action item only, not a public hearing. Again, it's just to add things to the work program, and then they continue through the plan amendment process. And the board would is scheduled, looks like June 10th for that. Again, that's just to add it to the comprehensive plan work program. It's not an approval, denial. There are no decisions being made other than to add it to the work program. And then I will stress again that that is separate from, the policy plan that we're talking about today. That's just how how our process by which we implement site-specific changes to the comprehensive plan. And I'll leave it at that. So.
No, that was helpful. I just needed to have a sense, and the answer is June is when you get the decision
right.
to
But then,
add on.
Right, to add it to the work program. But then again, I mean, whatever is added to that, the timelines for those and whether or not those then become what we refer to as plan amendments. And that's where we then, we do more full analysis of those, where we even consider things that are in the policy plan. And that's, and those, there's really no given timeline on those particular, when they become plan amendments. So.
And of it, I did remember what somebody came in. I'm in a nursing home, so people come in and disturb me. The question ultimately is, let's say you've got a bike and pedestrian trail plan, which I forgot her first name, Nicole Winans, is in charge of. And an article last summer suggested that the cost of this would be billions of dollars. And so in terms of how you're addressing priorities for plan changes and plan additions, who is expected to pay for this? I mean, and you need to have a sense of reality about these things, which is, so in other words, I understand the bikers want to have more bike trails, but it's got to be within the realms of fiscal constraint and what taxpayers can afford. And right now, it appears that people in charge of county policy are only considering bike and pedestrian trails. I went to the meeting of the CTB, I guess it was, last week, and there's nothing being added in by VDOT in its 6-year planning process for Fairfax County. The earliest that the construction will start on the Soapstone overpass is 2032. No time frame and no budget source has been identified for Town Center underpass, and equally no discussion has occurred on the widening of Fairfax County Parkway north of Route 50. And so sooner or later, any ideas that you have for new development in Fairfax County will come to a complete stop if you don't address specific transportation improvements for highways. And I know that may not be what you want to hear, but what I'm telling you is from where I sit, if you don't do something about this, everything's going to come to a complete stop. And maybe that's what you want. I don't know. So anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you. And I don't see any more hands or anything in the chat. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us on this dreary Tuesday. I know there's a lot going on, so we appreciate you making the time to join us for this meeting, and thank you for the feedback. If you have any additional comments or questions, please send them to our Plan Forward inbox. You can access that through our project webpage as well, and we'll do our best to get you answers or get you in contact with the right people. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
William, can you do the end meeting for all? Thank you.